toasting, joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well. Welcome, my friends, to this fine radio program. This is Smokin' and Toastin', back for episode number 130. This show is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And we are live on Facebook. We're available on all the podcast networks, pretty much anyone you can think of. And we're, of course, also at YouTube and on SoundCloud. So you can find us just about anywhere. Our sponsor is B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. And today's show, number 130, is underway. We're very excited about our special guest today. Joe Breda from Old Humble Distilling is here, and he's got quite a story to tell, and he's got bottles of whiskey with him. So this is, exactly the kind of guest that we like.
That's right.
The ones that come bearing, gifts.
I like to bring the party with me when I come.
That's right. That's right. So it's been quite a week, Ian. We're now up to show number 130.
No one stopped us yet.
Well, see, there you go. You're inciting the critics again.
I can't stop myself.
It's just it's a thing. So we're so glad you're here, Joseph. We'll get to a little bit of whiskey tasting here in just a little bit, but we're opening up our first segment. Got a couple of things to let people know are coming up. One is that there's two big things going on for cigar aficionados with the FDA. Two big things that happened this week. So we'll get to that. We'll tell you about that. Also, Maryland, not always the most progressive state when it comes to things like this, but they've got a bill proposed that would eliminate the state tax on premium cigars. Right now, there's a tax in Maryland where if you sell cigars that came in from out of state, there's this huge state tax that they rack them up. So this is one that it's actually going the right way instead of the wrong way.
That's the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. So a list of the top 50 craft brewers has been released. One of our local faves is on there, so we'll go over that list for you as the program rolls. Plus, Ian, you brought in a special beer for today's show, didn't you?
Let me get it out.
Yeah,
now.
why don't you
tell you exactly about it?
While you're doing that, I'll tell you that in addition to Ian's special beer, now see,
I was quick.
That looked good. That looks good. What'd you bring?
This is the New Belgium Wood Cellar Reserve. It's a new series that they have.
That's a sour, right?
Yes, it's a golden sour ale aged in single French oak, FOEDER Felix Foder casks, something like that. Wow, number 61.
Do you know what that is, Joe?
I know New Belgium, but I don't know Foder Felix.
Foder Felix sounds interesting. So that's one we'll be tasting. Also, Ian, I brought what will either be, I think, a runaway hit or the strangest beer we've ever tasted on the show.
We've had some weird ones.
Yes, we have. Dorchester Brewing and Decadent Ales. We've had beers from both of them before.
So this is a collab.
This is a strawberry frosted pastry IPA made with strawberries and spices. The idea is that it gives you that flavor that you get from a toaster pastry, like a Pop-Tart.
Okay.
And so we'll see. That's either going to work or it's not. I'm just telling you right now. I think we're either going to go, that's amazing, or, not so much. You know what I mean?
Pop-Tarts are fine if you cut off that annoyingly dry edge all the way around.
Yes, the part that doesn't have the frosting. I know. Why do they include
the
that
part? You got to go ahead and eat that part. You got to nibble that part off all the way around first, just to get through it, so you can enjoy the rest of it. Because you don't want your last bite to be that dry part.
Also from Purcellville, Washington, and Adroit Theory Brewing Company. I brought us a Tenebris barley wine today.
All right.
I know you're going to be excited.
I'm all about that.
You're a barley wine guy. And, of course, Joe's here with some whiskey from Old Humble Distilling. We will get to that as the program goes through. But, Ian, before we go any further, I understand you may have something you wish to show us.
Oh, I had a good time this week.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm on spring break schedule right now. So this week is my.
So
spring
like
break.
your students that you teach guitar to
my
and
students
stuff
I
are
teach
doing
guitar
lessons.
to are all out on spring break. So I took the spring break off. So
Right.
So Monday I drove out to Austin, and I have a friend of mine that lives out there, Sam, and I stayed at his house. And then Tuesday morning we woke up and we drove about an hour and 20 minutes northwest of Austin to a place called Spider Mountain.
Spider
Doesn't
Mountain.
that sound awesome?
That just sounds good.
Right. They just opened this up. It's the first one in Texas. Now, they have these in other places, but this is a lift park.
Yeah.
And what this means is you drive up and you pay money, and then you and your mountain bike get on a ski lift, and they take you to the top of the mountain.
So it's kind of like
drop
going
you off.
skiing, except when you get up there,
Yes.
there's no snow, of course, and you're there with your mountain bike.
That's right. And you don't have to pay the climbing on your mountain bike gods just to get the fun ride down.
Wow, now that is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So we did a whole bunch of those. I think we have some pictures of me with the ski lift there, a selfie with the ski lift, and then a picture of me on top of the mountain. You can see the background. It's beautiful out
Yeah.
there. There's a big lake in the background and everything like that. It's really, really nice. There it is. Look how orange my mountain bike is. That's probably a little late since there's a lag on these. But anyway, I had a blast doing that. And that does tie into the beer that I brought because we happened at the end of that day we happened to run by a Specs, and I found this particular
Found that
beer.
beer.
In the
Yeah,
singles
that looks
in a
great.
section. Thought
Looks great.
that sounds good for the show.
Do you have something to show us, though?
To show us?
Yes.
Not that I know of.
Well, I don't spend a lot of time on the Book of Faces, but I did notice this week that you maybe had acquired something new.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. That was
Yeah.
that was Saturday.
Was that old?
That's like last week. Come
Well,
on.
yeah, but it's since
That was-
it's
yes, I
since
did. I
it's
got
since the last show.
I got
And okay, so yeah, we'll have to focus in on that.
my new tattoo.
All right. So there you go. Now, explain it.
Oh, so the skull is what we use in CCSD is the Connoisseurs Club of Smoking and Drinking, and the skull is called Buck Sirius. It's our mascot.
And you've been a member of that for quite a while, right?
Over 10 years now.
Yeah,
Over
yeah.
10 years. And so I decided to go ahead and get that tattooed by one of our members named Catfish. He has a yes.
I don't have a lot of rules
I can't
in life.
make this up.
I don't have a lot of rules in life, but one of them is be very, very careful about getting a tattoo from a man named Catfish.
Catfish
That's
is an amazing artist.
Oh, okay.
And
Should
he
probably be
he
more
opened,
careful of people named Esteban.
Yeah, you're probably right. Or guys
well,
that
he opened up a tattoo shop up on Durham.
okay.
Like Shepherd Durham area, north
Houston,
of I-10 in Houston, and it's called Flying Squid Tattoos, and he's an artist around
I like the
Houston.
name.
Yeah, he's an absolutely incredible artist, and so I thought for this one, I'm definitely going to him to get this, and he goes, well, how do you want it to look? I said, you're the artist, you draw it, and then at the end of it, he goes, do you want a cigar on there? And I said, yes.
Yes. See, that's what I loved about it when I saw it, because I've actually seen your logo before.
Right.
But I hadn't seen the cigar, and then I'm like, that's awesome.
Right, that was pretty fun. Yeah, totally. Sorry, I was totally spacing on that.
I thought you'd be like, bursting at the seams to show us the new.
I'll just
the
be
new
walking
tattoo,
around with
you know?
one sleeve up.
Yeah, it's kind of, because most people are like that when they get a new tattoo. Like they can't wait to show it. It's almost like whenever a woman gets breast augmentation. It's almost like they're not.
They want to show them off.
It's almost like they're not like a private thing anymore. They're just like, look. And I'm like, well, depending on the situation.
Yeah. No. Yes, please.
Yeah, exactly.
If I must.
I'll do what I have to. I'm a friend. So it sounded like an interesting week. Tattoo, mountain biking from the lift park.
Yes,
And,
that was a blast.
I'm assuming that somewhere in there you probably sandwiched in time to smoke something interesting.
I did this morning. I did my normal.
Oh,
I went
okay.
up to Casa de Monte Cristo, and I found myself a tatuaje that I hadn't had before. Let me pull that up so I have all my notes and everything.
Big shout to our buddy Tom Poehler, who represents Tatuaje.
Yeah. So it's a Tatuaje Cojonu, I think is how you would pronounce it. Cojonu. It's like cajon, like the drum, but with a U on the end. Cajon.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that's
Cojones?
how it's Cojonu 2000.
Is that
That's different.
That's a different thing.
Don't beat
Okay.
on those. Those are bad. This was a Cojonu 2006. This was a torpedo 5.5 by 52. The appearance on this: dark chocolate, firm, some veins, Had a very, the classic Tatuaje band, which, by the way, is so classic and understated.
And it's
but
so
it looks,
thin and
it looks
cool. Yeah,
great,
I know.
doesn't it?
I totally agree.
And then it had a secondary band that was gold and black, said Cojonu 2006 on it. The pre-light sniff on this, rich earth, chocolate, and light pepper is what I was getting right off the bat. The pre-light draw, I used a clip because it was a torpedo. It's hard to punch torpedoes, which is my usual go-to. It had a very light draw to it. I got a lot of leather and earth, malt powder from it, like not necessarily chocolatey, but malty.
Oh, interesting.
It was
Yeah.
an interesting cigar like that because the malt went all the way through this cigar.
I like
Malt powder, light pepper and spice, maybe a little cinnamony kind of spice to it. It was nice. It was
This is all before you lit.
This is before I lit it. The initial light was very pepper right up front, leather, spice, a little malt, medium smoke volume. It was nice. It wasn't a big harsh light, but it was a big peppery light. This is a medium cigar overall. I think I forgot to write that in my notes, but about a medium is what I judge it overall, like right in the center of medium. The first third of this was smooth, absolutely smooth, like the big, nice silky smoke, malty sweetness, cedar, leather, tanginess to it, big smoke volume. Had a bizarre ash to it. There should be a picture of that coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
The
Actually,
ash is a little weird.
It's like it's a straight burn, but like the ash almost looks like a puppet face.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah, like smoke me in.
It burned great. It made great smoke rings. When I get a nice big smoky cigar,
so
I
you're
can't
good at
stop
that.
myself from
Yeah.
making smoke rings. The second third of this, more smooth. I mean, it had now the cedar flavors came more to the front. The malty sweetness was right behind it. Leather tang had a little cashew nutty kind of flavor. Cashews are a little sweet too, so it had a little bit of that kind of flavor. Solid ash, good burn. The third on this cigar, pepper. The pepper gently returned, like it just came back a little at a time as the last part of the cigar was going. Lots of cedar, malty and cashew sweetness were still there. Spice returned a little more. The spice went back after the initial light and came back at the very end of this, which made it kind of more of a ride because it kept developing a little bit. It was a nice, complex smoke.
Tatuajes generally are pretty complex.
Yeah, and it had the same flavor profiles that kept showing up, but they kept kind of going in and out, kind of weaving in and out of each other, so that the cigar was never the same.
and made it very interesting.
Yeah, it
actually.
made it very fun, actually. Solid ash, perfect burn. I paid $12.60 for this cigar.
Okay.
It was worth every penny and then some.
So
I gave it a
that's-
6.5.
Wow, one of the things people have to understand is that when a cigar is $10 or more, and it gets something above a 5.
Yeah, no, this
I mean
was-
that's a big deal because, and Joe, the way our price to quality scale works that we use to talk about the cigars is that if you give something a 5, it means you feel like you got exactly what you paid for. So you bought a $10 cigar, smoke was worth every bit of the $10. That's a 5. If it could have been a $12 cigar, and you'd have still been, still been happy with what you were smoking at that price. Then it gets a little bit higher,
Yeah.
and if it's below a 5, it means it didn't live up to its cost.
Right.
But
makes sense.
you say a 6.5. That's
Six and a
actually
half.
a
This
really
was a
good
great
rating.
cigar. I'm actually very much considering the price of a box of those.
I think that you and I have swapped personalities in the past month. Because you've been giving everything like really high ratings that you've been smoking, like really.
I've been
smoking
really lucky,
great
apparently.
stuff, and then I've been like trashing everything.
I'm
I
so
don't know why.
interested to hear what you're going to talk about today.
Well,
so interested.
okay. So last week, a very interesting thing happened on the show that had never happened before. There have been times that Ian and I have gone out and done the show, Joe, where we've been on location someplace, and so we're smoking during the show, and we'll smoke the same cigar and talk about it. I think one other time we agreed to smoke the same cigar during a week and do it. But ordinarily, he picks out whatever he wants to smoke, and I'll pick out something that I've smoked and talk about it. Last week, by sheer coincidence, we both arrived having smoked the same cigar. In fact, both of us bought the cigar
out of the same box.
Yeah, out of what we're pretty sure was even the same box in at Casa de Monte Cristo, which is not far from the studio here. Probably that or Stogie's would be our closest cigar shop to where we are. So what was really interesting is that Ian loved it. It was an Avo 30 Maduro.
I gave it a rating of 8 on the price of
And that's
quality. It was
that may be the
amazing.
highest rating you've ever given, except for the Black and Mild that one time.
I think I've given one other cigar an
One-
8.
okay.
But yeah, absolutely. It was an amazing
You were
cigar.
blown
I just
away.
enjoyed it. tremendously.
I gave mine a 2.5, one of the lowest ratings I've ever given a cigar.
We had the same cigar with completely different
Right,
experiences.
and it was legit. It wasn't just that his palate was different than mine. Like, his cigar really blew him away. Mine, I struggled with. It was plugged. It was really badly.
And the pictures, like if you look at mine, it's perfect. It burned perfect. It's
smooth,
smoked perfect.
and
All the
beautiful.
pictures throughout the burn, everything are perfect. Yours, look,
it had a big gash in the side at the beginning, just an unevenness in the leaf there, and then but the worst thing is it was either plugged or it was very close to plugged. So you're struggling with the cigar the whole time, trying to get some kind of draw that'll let you know what the flavor is, and it just wound up being a bad situation. And it was an $11 cigar, so that's why had it been a cheaper cigar, it wouldn't have had that bad of a rating. But at $11, I'm expecting.
Well, and then before I left the store, I was so stoked about this cigar, I bought one more to bring to you.
Right.
I was like, you've got to try this.
You've got to try this, yeah. And so when this discussion happened on last week's show, we actually unwrapped that from the cellophane, and looking at it, it wasn't nearly as
pretty
and smooth as the one that Ian had remembered, but wasn't nearly as bad as the one that I had smoked. It was just kind of a rough, rugged exterior. So, Ian, I'd said in my review that I'd like to smoke another one just to see if it was an aberration, a bad one in the box or whatever. But at $11, I probably wouldn't wind up doing that. Well, thanks to Ian's generosity, I had another one to smoke, and that's what I smoked this week. So this is my thoughts on the Avo 30 Maduro, take 2.
All right.
So it wasn't, as I said, as rugged looking in appearance as my first one, but it was still a bit rustic. The pictures will show that. The pre-light on this had subtle tobacco flavors, a little bit of straw, and then once I got it lit, it gave off a little of that vegetal aroma that I was talking about last week. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a bad flavor. It's not something I look for, but it's not something where you go ugh. But I do kind of associate it in my brain with cheaper cigars, like the ones you get for the bundle in the mail order catalogs, and they wind up being $1.60 a cigar,
right? Seconds or whatever.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it had a little bit of that. The good news though is that unlike the last one, this one was not plugged. So I got plenty of smoke. I was able to draw through the cigar, so I could try to concentrate on the flavors that it was giving me. The bad news is, almost immediately it began to canoe.
Oh, no.
Like right off the bat. And the pictures will show that, too. I was able to, continue smoking it. It wasn't a disaster, but from the beginning, again, it smoked like a much cheaper cigar, not like an $11 cigar. The uneven burn didn't get worse, but it also didn't correct itself. So I finally tended it a little bit with my lighter, got it burning better, but it still stayed crooked for the first half of the cigar. I was able to get some flavor, but not a lot of complexity. There was kind of a light sense of black pepper on the tongue. Once that vegetal taste kind of faded, and it did, it was reasonably pleasant, but not at all complex. It was kind of one-dimensional, quite frankly.
Now, did you eat rotten salad before you smoked these cigars? I mean,
well, sometimes what I'll do,
lettuce is a little bit brown, but I ate it anyway.
Sometimes what I'll do after I have something like this, where I'm not getting much, is after I finish that cigar, I'll go to my humidor and pull out something that I've smoked many times.
That you know the profile.
That I know what the profile is like, and I'll light that up and see. Is it me? Like, did I eat something that's totally affecting my palate, or whatever? Or am I off with something that I know what to expect on? So I did that with this, and so my palate didn't appear to be off or messed with in any way by something I had eaten. It was only when I got to the last third of this cigar that I got any deepening of the flavor. It was mostly pepper, but I do like pepper, and there was a bit of earth to the palate. Bottom line, it was still a huge disappointment.
You've scared me off of it. I gave it such a huge rating. My my experience was so good, but I'm wondering if 2 out of 3, maybe I got the lucky one.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a disaster like the first one. I mean, the first one was like, that the first one was the kind of cigar that if that was the first Avo I'd ever smoked, I might not ever try it.
Right,
You know what I mean? Although I've had some
well, and it's
wonderful
crazy
Avo
because
cigars
Avos are generally like you don't even think about the construction quality on an Avo.
But this one, even though it wasn't a disaster like the last one, I've smoked. This was an $11 cigar. I've smoked much better $5 cigars. Hell, I've smoked better $3 cigars.
That's a tough one.
And that's a tough one, right? Price to quality, a 4.
Okay.
If you average that with the one I smoked last week, that's a score of 3.25. Even if you average in Ian's 8, and by the way, I just want you to know, I used a calculator for this because I'm not that good at math, but I made myself notes. But even if you average in Ian's 8, that's still only a 4.8, and somehow that seems too high.
Agreed.
Maybe I should have given last week a 1 and this week a 3. Maybe that would be more, but 1 just seems like, wow, you're really dogging a cigar.
So what you're saying is Avo owes us $22.
Yeah, well, look, I know what you're saying, but I also understand that sometimes, the cigar rolling is an art, not a science. I mean, there's a lot of science that goes into growing the tobacco and curing it. But at the end of the day, that roller, what the roller does when he blends and puts the cigar together, I mean, there's a lot of art to it, and so I understand that sometimes you're going to get a bad one. You hate when that happens on an $11 cigar. You'd much rather that happen on a $5 cigar,
Naturally.
But you hate when that happens on an $11 cigar. But it makes me skittish. I can tell you this: I won't be buying another Avo 30.
Right.
I may buy other things from their line because I've had better results with other things from their line, but I won't be buying another one of those. Now you watch. We'll have to revisit this at the end of the year. I guarantee you the 30 is going to make all these top 25 best of lists at the end of it. Let me ask you a question, Joe, and we'll get into the whiskey in the next segment.
Sure.
But we think of this with cigars that sometimes you get a bad apple, right? And you go, well, it's an inexact science, and so you go, but that doesn't apply in your business, does it?
It depends on where you're getting your whiskey from.
But you don't get the luxury of having a bad bottle with the consumer, right? If I buy a bottle of this and take it home and I don't like it, chances are I'm never going to come back and try this again, right? Whereas with a cigar, we have a tendency to give more leeway. Do you think that's true?
There's a balance. I find this so fascinating because I've sat around the table with a lot of whiskey and a lot of people, and we do the same thing. We can have 4 people come with 4 different opinions of the exact same bottle of whiskey.
Thing. Sure, yeah.
And it could be what they had earlier that day, or the mood they're in, or the price of the drink itself. Because we do the same thing when we do our tastings and samplings. We'll do a comparison of. I'll put down a list. I won't tell them what it is, but I'll put down a list of the prices, and they'll put the bottles next to the price or the drinks next to the price.
So they put what they think,
what it would be, what they'd be willing to pay.
That's very similar to
They put what they're willing to pay, and if you pay $85 for a really good $30 bottle of whiskey, you're never coming back to that bottle.
I see what you're saying.
Because you just paid almost 3 times more than you should have.
Exactly.
And it did not live up to expectations.
Whereas
now, if you pay $25 for a bottle that's, $25, you might come back to it. Depends on the situation. If you buy a bottle of just garbage water, you're not coming back to that garbage water.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
But I think,
but if you get the value, then you might come back.
I think
there's more leeway on cigars because even with a box of cigars, which is 20 cigars,
right,
you can have a bad cigar or two. Whereas in the spirit world, you're not going to have one bottle good, one bottle bad. You would have a bad batch, if anything.
Right.
And I feel like that would most of the time be culled out, before it was bottled.
Usually,
unless something happened in the bottling.
It can happen that way too.
Right.
Like with your mass producers, they're going to have consistent quality from January through December.
Yeah.
With your smaller batch craft distillers, you can have different. I mean, you can buy one bottle in January and one bottle in February, and they both came out of a different batch.
Right.
They should be similar.
Because the production is so much slower.
Right. They should be similar from bottle to bottle, but they're going to be different.
But that's like buying the same wood carving from a guy. If it's handmade, it's handmade. And there will be differences between mine and yours, but they should have a consistency to them.
Right. They should be familiar.
So that's not
There should be the
necessarily
same
like
notes.
Yeah, that's not necessarily like a bad batch or a bad bottle. It might have some differences,
Right.
But
And
not in a
sometimes-
bad way.
Well, if you think about it, with instruments, certain musicians, you think about
thinking the
Willie
same
Nelson's guitar. He's got this old beat up guitar,
Trigger.
but yet that creates, for whatever reason, he's stuck with that because it created the sound. I mean, he could buy whatever guitar he wants to buy. He's stuck with that because it creates the particular tone and sound that he wants and that he's comfortable with. And I think, in some cases, hand-rolled cigars are like that. But I feel like in the beverage industry, you're maybe held to a little tougher standard.
It's a little bit higher risk reward there.
Yeah.
Because instead of a $10, now if you're going to a bar, $10 shot versus a $10
Right.
or a $30 or $40 bottle of whiskey, that's different. You
Right.
might risk a couple of drink. I kind of think that
You might try it again.
getting a drink
Yeah.
at a bar is a little bit lower risk than buying the whole bottle.
Right.
Or getting a friend to buy you a drink at the bar
Right.
is even lower risk.
That's why I like to go to the bar with Ian.
But these are very much like a live performance.
Right.
You can go see the same band again and again and again, and the second time you see it, it's not going to be the same as the first time you saw it. But just because you know what to expect doesn't mean it's been ruined.
Right.
Because you want to hear that story again. You want to hear the music again. You want to hear the same jokes again. You want to hear all the stuff that you get in the same live performance. And it's the same way with a good craft whiskey. You
really
should have the same similar, familiar feel, taste, emotion coming out of that bottle every time you drink it. But every time it's going to be a little bit different if it's coming from a different batch.
Right.
The same way that you listen to a live performance of
whoever,
Mozart
yeah.
or
Right.
the Rolling Stones or
gonna
whatever.
Be a little
Iron
bit
Maiden.
different every time. Yeah.
I went and saw Iron Maiden years
Yeah.
ago, and all my friends that went and saw it complained the entire time. They didn't play any of the old stuff till like the very end. They played a couple songs. I was like, well, I've got all those records. I want to hear new stuff. So
Yeah.
I think there's a difference in perception and what you expect time after time again. Because I've seen them before, and they played all the old stuff, and that's fun.
Do you remember the pop star Ashley Simpson? She was Jessica Simpson's little
Yes,
sister.
the one with the funny
Yeah,
little
yeah.
dance because she was embarrassed.
Interestingly
The lip
enough,
syncer.
her performances, they're exactly the same every time.
Right?
Go figure.
I don't know how that
That's a
happened.
consistency of art that is hard to repeat.
Hard to reproduce. Yes.
Yeah. Or sometimes performances can be so bad you can't tell if it's consistent or not, but it just doesn't matter. Cardi B, I'm looking at you. Let's take a break, and we'll come back with the next segment. I want to get into doing a little bit of tasting here, and I want you to tell me a
too.
little bit about Old Humble Distilling, how you guys got started, where the whole idea came from, and then as we do some of this tastings, I think we have some questions about what it's like to be in what is now becoming a much more crowded field, which is the world of craft distilling and craft whiskey in particular. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Smoking and Toasting. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live, and thanks for listening to the show.
I find that discussion to be so fascinating. 'Cause, when we do our tasting notes, we have a rule at the table of complete silence.